Who was that guy in the yellow shirt? All right, awesome. It's nice to see you guys. Welcome, and thank you for having us come to your country because it's amazing. I love the way it started. It started with convicts. It's a great place for redemption. It is. And there's a reason why I say that. How many of you have never heard my testimony before? Yes. How many of you have never heard me before? So good. All right. I have a mop on my head. So Pastor Boatman said. I'm eating my minutes, sorry. All right. So I didn't grow up in the church. I grew up against the church. I grew up hating the church. I grew up hating anything religious because that's what I thought church was. And I'm just going to run through real quick because I came out of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst situations. And I grew up, my mom and dad, just like any other kid. My dad wasn't really there for me. Not every dad's like that, but mine was. He got messed up in Vietnam, so his mind just was out there. So I went, and at 11 and a half, my mom and dad got divorced. And I got put into a boys' home because I immediately rebelled. I couldn't handle it, and I just was a bad kid, man. Got in trouble all the time. Broke windows out, shot BB guns. Lots of bad things, stole stuff. It was just a wrecking ball. So I got put into a home called the Masonic Homes. It was sponsored by a group called the Masons. And I went in there. Please don't get totally weirded out by it, because when I say that stuff, we're like, oh, deliverance, be careful. Because I'm really free. But let me get to how I got free. All right, because the blood of Jesus is what sets you free. All right? Finished work. So I went into this boys' home, and my mom said I could come home by the end of the summer if I didn't like it, and unfortunately that never happened, and I stayed there for almost 6 years. I got out of there, but at the age of 12 I was a full-on drug addict, so I'm about 5 years into drug addiction, and that was my savior. That was everything. So I needed to get high, I needed to party, I needed all that in order to make me feel okay, because I live by feelings. So I got out of there, got kicked out, actually came home, and I said, you know what, I need to do something with my life so that I can straighten it out. So I thought, what's a good thing? Well, I'll just join the Marines. So I joined the Marine Corps with an issue with rebellion. And I went to boot camp, and I did pretty well because I mouthed off the whole time. So they pretty much broke me. And they break you, and actually they conform you to what the Marine Corps says you are. The Bible transforms you, but the Marines try to conform you. So I came out of boot camp, looked like a machine. Came out, my mom was freaked out, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, you've really changed. There was no Jesus in all of my family. We didn't have any Jesus at all the whole way through. So I come from a line of heathens. So I got out of boot camp, came back for leave, went back onto base, and I found out that Marines party. So I started to drink and started to party, and I started to really, really just go back into the twistedness. They brainwashed me, but brains can't be washed just by thoughts and by people trying to conform you. Brains have to be washed with blood so that they can be pure, so that they can be clean, so that they can be holy and lovely and blameless before God. But none of that was in my life, man. So I went out, ended up not wanting to be in the Marines, and I went AWOL, and I ran away. And so I said I wanted to leave, go home again. They said no. I said okay. I went back, packed my stuff, and went home. And then I stole a bunch of money in a drug deal, and I went out to Colorado, living the dream. I was out there as a ski bum, got a job at some place, and they hired me. I lied on the application like I always did. Got the job, ended up shoveling snow in the middle of all these ski resorts, and I had free skiing passes like a pipe dream. Until I got pulled over by the cops one day, and they ran my license, and all my dreams just came crashing. And I went to jail, and they put me there for a while. I fought extradition. Extradition means that you're trying to fight them coming to get you. That doesn't work. So they came out and got me. They shipped me back across America, put me in military prison down in North Carolina in the Brig. I was in there for about 8 months. I got out, and I was waiting for my discharge to come in. And they said, well, it's going to be another 1.5 years until it comes. And so I said, okay. So I went home, decided in a couple of minutes that that's not good for me, so I went AWOL again. So I went back out and got a job out there at the same place that I did at a different place, but I still had the skiing thing. I was just totally twisted, man. Drugs were my Lord and Savior, man. Everything. So I ended up getting busted again, traffic violation. Ended up getting shipped back across America, put in the brig again. And this time, they didn't give me the chance of waiting for my discharge, so they kicked me out and gave me a bad conduct discharge. In the military, they call that a big chicken dinner, bad conduct discharge. So it doesn't look good on a resume when you try to get jobs, right? So that was how I started out my life. I already had $14,000 in court costs and fines to pay back in restitution for all of my partying and all that junk that I did. And I had that record, so I had to lie to get jobs, lie to get jobs. So if you have to lie to get a job, you have to lie to keep it. Right? Because once you lie, you just got to cover it 1,000 times over to make sure your first one stays stone-clad. So I was a professional liar and a con artist. So in the midst of that, I went out on this blind date with this girl. We ended up hitting it off. I ended up tricking her into thinking I was a cool guy. So we moved in together, and she's like, wow, this is like my knight in shining armor. Because the drug addiction was on the down low. All I did was drink a little and party a little, but it was kind of hidden. About a year and a half into our life, I had already had a couple of jobs by now, but I was a sales guy, so I could go from job to job to job, just working for commission. But I was a master of none, but I practiced every job. I never ever was able to hold one. So my girlfriend got pregnant and we ended up having a little girl. And when my little girl was born, I realized that I could never be a father. And this thing hit my heart. And I realized when I looked at my daughter, that there was no way I could be a dad. I didn't know what a dad was like. I didn't have my dad there physically like I should have grown up. And a lot of kids grow up that way, where their dad does the best they can, and to the best that he knows how to. But if that dad doesn't know the father, he can't be a father. He can't. He can do what he wants. People get upset. I'm a good dad. No. God's the best dad ever, and if we emulate him, and if we magnify him, and if we look like him, our kids will be better off. So I didn't know any of that stuff. I'm totally whacked, totally twisted, and suicidal thoughts kept coming, bombarding me. I was already depressed, but now it's depression with suicide. I wanted to be done with my life. So my girlfriend really shortly found out that drug addiction was so bad, I went through another job and another job. So she said, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. You're a loser and a liar, and you lied to me about everything. I'm leaving. So I said to her with jealousy and rage, because I was the guy that was the dude that if someone beeped at me in a stoplight, I'd get out of my car, punch their window out to get to them. I was the road rage guy. I was the guy. I was that one. I was the one to punch you in the mouth when you said something to me. I was the guy that grew up with self-defense and self-protection and survival my whole life. And that was where I was. And so she said she was leaving me. So I said, if I catch you with somebody, I'll kill you after I kill them in front of you, and then I'll kill myself. So I had no reason to live. There was no purpose to my life. I had no idea why I was even on the earth, but my daughter was the only thing that was keeping my girlfriend from leaving. Plus the fact that I scared her, but more that I would kill myself. And I thought about it almost daily, about ending my life. So she stayed with me, and my daughter grew up that way for 7.5 years. And my girlfriend was with me for 9 years at that time. So 9 years into our relationship, I go out and I'm hooked on crack cocaine and messed up. I'm hooked on everything. But that was my drug at the time, and I couldn't get away. It called my name. It called my name loud every day. So I'm out one night, I come home, and she's gone. So I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm finished. I don't want to be around anymore. I knew she wasn't with anybody, and I realized that it was me. I was the problem. So I went to her stepdad's house to get a rifle out of the gun cabinet, so I was going to end my life. I had it all planned. I was going to go there. There was a notepad by the phone book. I was going to grab the notepad and I was going to write my suicide letter. And I didn't really have much to say except I'm sorry. You're better off without me. That was my plan. I went by the phone book and I opened the phone book for some weird reason. Now I know why, but I opened it then and had no idea. And it opened to churches. So I made a check at one of the 586 churches in my hometown. Lots of churches, man. I didn't have any idea what they were like, but I made a check at one. So I drove to this church really mad, man. I don't even know why I'm driving there. No one comes to God unless God woos them. And God was wooing me, but I was really mad at the woo. So I went to this church, and some guy answers the door around back, and I said, I need to talk to somebody. He goes, all right, buddy, come on in. I'm like, man, what's wrong with this dude? And the problem is that he had the joy of the Lord in his eyes, and I could see that he really believed what he believed. See, the eye is the lamp of the body, and if your eye is single, your whole body is full of light. But if the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And so all I saw was darkness, and people never came up to me and told me how much God loved me. They never told me how much Jesus loved me and cared for me. They never told me he died for me, not just to get me to heaven, but to get heaven into me. No one told me that, man. Everybody told me I was going to hell that did talk about Christ. Change your ways or go to hell. Going to hell never scares anybody to heaven. It's a real thing, but people just preached at me, and it was a horrible thing. Heaven's real, man. But in my life, what I was living in was hell. I couldn't think of anything worse than what I was living. And so my life is twisted. This guy's telling me, and I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you, man? Why are you so happy? He said, because of Jesus. I said, I did not come here to hear about Jesus. He said, this is a church. Like, I don't care what it is, man. And you're not even listening to me. He said, I am listening to you. But what you're telling me isn't helping you. He said, you know what? You told me that you wanted to kill yourself. That you were just about ready to pull the trigger. Why do you think you're here? He said, I don't know. He said, well, since you don't want your life, why don't you give it away? I said, what does that even mean?